Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time here. This is a compilation video that's been put together as a tribute to Alice. Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. So tragically, Alice died last year, this time last year, and she was about to embark on Joyreading in June. And as I said, tragically, she didn't manage to do that event, and as a tribute, Charlie Brooke, Gemma Noakes, and Jack from Spreadbrick Joy, the three of them decided to do the event as a tribute and in honor of Alice, and I joined in. A few other people have done it as well, and it's just been a lovely way to honor Alice. But also, I wanted to do this video, and I've asked lots of friends to tell me a book that represents joy in reading for them. Something, you know, obviously you could probably have, one of my friends sent a message back going, how can I just pick one? And obviously, if you're a reader, many books give you joy. But this is a compilation video of lots of people you'll recognize, hopefully, telling you something about their book they've picked that gives them joy. In honor of Alice, we miss Alice so much. She was an absolutely really lovely person, and I'm so pleased that I met her twice. Spent a day with her twice, and it was just amazing. And it's absolutely crazy that we lost her last year. So yeah, enjoy the video, and I'm going to appear at the end with my choice. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Katie from the channel Books and Things, and when Gareth asked me to come along and talk about a joyful read in honour of Joyreading June and Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, there were a lot of different books and authors that sprung to mind. There were definitely a few authors who are real go-to comfort authors for me. Authors like Agatha Christie, who I know Alice loves so much, but also authors like Anthony Trollope, who is a real comfort read for me. He wrote a lot of books and they're all wonderful, and the majority of them are happy and just an utter delight and pleasure to read. But I think my go-to joyful book, my go-to comfort read, is always going to have to be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which I love so much and I have read so many times. And therefore every time I read it, it's just pure joy. It's such a wonderful love story. It's such a wonderful comedy of manners. It's so funny. It's so delightful and heartwarming. And every time I read it, it just brings me so much joy. So there we go. That's my pick for a joyful read. It would have to be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
Hi, it's Raj from Scully Dandling About the Books. And Gareth has asked for what's a joy read for me. Now, lots of books bring me joy when I read them, even miserable ones or difficult and challenging ones. But for sheer unadulterated joy, for me, you can't beat rereading a Jane Austen novel. Here's one, Emma, that I'm about to reread, but any of them I could have picked. Why? Because, well, there's the well-crafted plot, always. There's the beautifully polished, finely honed writing. I know that they will always be warm and funny, but that there's enough darkness, enough shadows in the books that they're not going to be too cozy and saccharine for me, which I don't like. But on the other hand, there will be a satisfying resolution to the story that fits the characters, fits human psychology, and feels right.
A book that always brings me joy is Anybody Can Do Anything by Betty MacDonald. Not a self-help book. It's a memoir, so autobiographical, slightly fictionalised by Betty MacDonald, came out in 1950, and it's set during the Great Depression in America. It's about really her relationship with her sister. Her sister's always daring her to do things and getting her into all sorts of scrapes. It goes back to her childhood, but it's mainly about them during the 30s doing all sorts of strange jobs and having kind of weird adventures as they try to get by. It's funny, it's insightful about the period. One part of it is actually quite scary. So yeah, Betty MacDonald, All her books are great, but I really like Anybody Can Do Anything.
Hey y'all, this is Crystal from the channel Fiber Artsy, and in thinking about a book that brought me so much joy, it was really this one that first came into my mind, Old Fashioned Cupcake by Sagan Sagan. I read this a couple of times because it's definitely it's just a delightful read. This is a manga. It is a romance manga, but what I love about it is it features older characters, and so someone who is a bit older themselves to see an older character represented in really a love story is just so lovely to see. This is basically an office romance, and we got our fellow here who is approaching 40, and he is sort of feeling the sort of humdrum of life and going to work and yada yada, and so his coworker comes in and they start doing little fun things together, like going to try out fun cafes and just fun little things together, and finding small pockets of joy in their life, and then perhaps they of course find a little bit more together and falling in love, and it is just, like I said, is an absolute delight. So I think it would bring you some joy as well. Old Fashioned Cupcake by Sagan Sagan. Thanks to Gareth for letting me be part of this. Bye.
A summary of transcription and translations in a eukaryotic cell. Well, at least it's got diagrams. Oh, hey, Gareth, how are you? Hey, we're not talking about biology. We're talking about books that bring us joy, and, well, fictional books that bring us joy. And one of those books, for me, is Gil's All Fright Diner from A. Lee Martinez. This is a fun, lighthearted, end-of-the-world kind of book where you have two protagonists, Earl, a vampire, and Duke, a werewolf, that stumble into town one day in their broken-up pickup truck and go into a diner for a cup of coffee and meet Loretta, the owner of the diner, who has a bit of an infestation, a zombie infestation. So she hires Duke and Earl to help her get rid of the zombies, figure out why they're coming and trying to attack the diner. And it is a fun, wonderful read with twists, turns, and some lighthearted humor. A bit of a romance in here between Earl the vampire and a ghost, as well as the antagonist who is trying to destroy the world and create a new world where she becomes the queen of the world. Anyways, Gil's All Fright Diner, a wonderful book that brings me joy every time I read it. Thanks so much, Gareth. Back to you.
Hello, I'm Ollie from Criminolly, and a book that brings me joy is this one, Fat Ollie's Book by Ed McBain. So this is from my favourite series of all time, the 87th Precinct Mystery Series. It features my favourite character from that series, Fat Ollie Weeks, and it's got my name in the title. But more than that, this is a wonderfully humorous book. So McBain always had a bit of humour in his 87th Precinct novels. But in this one, he really leans into it and has a wonderfully complex and madcap plot involving a book that Fat Ollie has written, which somebody discovers and thinks is true. So it's kind of got a fake mystery within a real mystery, and it's an absolute joy to read as a result. McBain was a real master of mystery fiction, and this book shows how well he can do comedy too.
So a book that gives me joy when I read it is pretty much any book that feels new to me or introduces me to something new or an author I hadn't read before. But I think the point of this question is to talk about a book that you reread that gives you joy when you read it. And I'm going to go with The Great Gatsby here. Probably the book I've reread the most in my life is The Great Gatsby. And it continues to, entertain me, enlighten me, show me kind of great writing. I think fully developed, interesting, very different characters. I just think it's a great book. And since this is its 100th anniversary this year, seems like an appropriate book to pick.
What book gives me joy? Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend, which is a middle grade fantasy. It is the first book in the Nevermore series, and what I love about this is, one, the world building. As the series goes on, you find out more and more about the world, and it has layers, there's history, and it has this wonderful balance between dark danger and threat, and also absolute joy in the found family, and the wonderful humour that Jessica Townsend writes with in here. And there's just so much fabulous stuff in here. If you enjoy fantasy, I highly recommend this. Even if you're not a middle grade reader, it might speak to you in some way. I really love that you have the protagonist overcoming prejudice in this book. That is one of my favourite tropes of having someone in a world that is suspicious about everyone else. And very quickly, here is the rest of the series. We have Wondersmith, Hollowpox, and finally it's just been released, Silverborn! If you want some joy, read Nevermore.
A book that brings me joy every time I read it is A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. The story is set in New Orleans during the early 60s. The main character, Ignatius J. Riley, is a 30-year-old unemployed graduate student of medieval philosophy. He is extraordinarily fat. He is a slob extraordinaire. He has many obscene and grotesque opinions about the world that are completely wrong. But somehow his heart gets right, even though you hate this character for everything he says, everything that he does. There is something absolutely lovable about Ignatius, even though he is completely wrong. And it is his interactions with the other characters in New Orleans that makes this novel so extraordinarily hilarious. I am not the kind of person who normally reads books to bring joy to myself, but this one always hits the mark.
Hey everyone, this is MJ. Gareth asked me to do a video about a book that I reread that I know will bring me joy. It makes me happy. So for me, that is the modern classic, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. I've read it in Goodreads 3 times already. I'm probably closer to 5. Every time I read that book, it either makes me cry, it makes me cry tears of joy because it touches something in my heart space. And it reminds me of why we're all here and the impact that we can make in each other's lives. So for me, it's Charlie Mackesy. And I'm so glad I got the title right.
Earth Abides is a post-apocalyptic novel by George R. Stewart, first published in 1949, that explores the aftermath of a devastating plague that wipes out most of humanity. The story follows Isherwood Williams, who survives the plague and emerges into a world where civilization has collapsed. He encounters other survivors, and together they attempt to rebuild a new society, but face the challenges of a drastically changed world and the loss of their former lives. You wouldn't necessarily think of a post-apocalyptic novel as being a novel that gives you joy. However, this story of survival is full of hope. Hope for a future, hope for the next generation, and hope that your life is meaningful. One of the themes that I love in this book is the idea that different generations have different priorities. And upon realizing this, Isherwood is very gracious and understanding. I love this book. I think it will bring you joy as well.
Hiya, my name is Charlie and I'm from the channel Charlie Brick Reads. And the book that brings me joy is Small Joys by Elvin James Mensah. And at the beginning of this book we meet Harley, who is battling with his mental health. So there are content warnings that come along with this book. But the thing that brings me joy about this book is the wonderful cast of friends that surrounds Harley during this dark time. In particular, one that I love the most, which is Muddy. And Muddy is a Mancunian birdwatcher who also loves Oasis. And yeah, he's just so warm and so sweet and so kind and so funny. And this just book, on so many levels, every time I've read it, it just warms my soul. So yeah, I highly recommend it. And if you get this particular paperback, it comes with a short story called Muddy Does the Full Monty, which is like a Christmas short story. So yeah, definitely check it out. And I hope it brings you as much joy and warmth as it did me.
Hello everyone. Now this book gives me pleasure, gives me joy when I read it. A Confederacy of Dunces. I hope you know it, because I've read this probably 5 times. I know the scenes by heart, I know the characters. It's literally falling apart. I bought this book again, and then I give it away to people, turn people onto it. And I bet I'm not the only one whose pick is this. We'll see. Great minds read alike.
Hello, I'm Jack. My channel is Spread Book Joy, and I'm one of the co-hosts of Joy Reading June, which we're doing in memory of our lovely friend Alice, who came up with the whole idea. And Gareth has asked me to tell you about a book that brings me joy, which is such a hard question because so many books bring me joy. Honourable mentions have to go to any Discworld novel by Terry Pratchett. I'm a huge fan. I couldn't pick just one, so that's why I haven't picked a Terry Pratchett. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring specifically, or anything by Jane Austen, Anne of Green Gables, The Wind in the Willows, all of those things bring me utter joy when I pick them up and read them. I've gone for one single book, which is another favourite series of mine, but the first book specifically, and that is Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This book is one that I will turn to when I need cheering up because it is hilariously funny, and specifically the first book is my favourite because an ordinary Earthman, Arthur Dent, one ordinary Thursday, Arthur finds that his house is about to be demolished, and as if that wasn't bad enough, his best friend, who turns out to be an alien, informs him that it's actually the planet Earth that's due to be demolished. And so Arthur's adventures begin, and poor old Arthur is in such a state of shock, and we're introduced to this crazy galaxy out there through Ford Prefect, who is his best friend and has a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy emblazoned with the immortal words that I think of as whenever I'm panicking, which I'm prone to do: don't panic. And I think they're words to live your life by. So yeah, I've selected The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams as my joyful read.
Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March. And in honor of Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, my friend Gareth from Book Songs and Other Magic asked if I had a book that caused me to feel joy, was joyful to read. And it would be easy for me to come on here and show you Middlemarch, predictably, but I'm going to show you something different. This is Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. This was published in 1853 and is one of Gaskell's more well-known novels, and it's a short one. It is joyful, and when I look at my Goodreads review on this book, the first sentence was, "This was a joy to read." It is a story about a provincial town in England, a Victorian town, dominated by women, by single women, spinsters as they were called, or older women, or widows. And it is a joy to read about their provincial life, the relationships that they have with each other, what happens when a rogue man comes into town. But it's just stories of friendships and families and characters. It is beautifully written, and it is literally such a joy to read about this story. And as a bonus, the miniseries with Judi Dench is also as amazing.
Hello there. It's my duty for this little video bit to talk about a book that brings me joy. And on a warm, sunny summer afternoon when the books have to be free from complication, there was one book that came quickly to mind, and it's this. It's Steve Alten's novel Meg, in which an intrepid marine biologist crosses paths with a giant prehistoric killer shark that has made its way to the surface and is eating everything in sight. There's a forlorn love interest, there's a whole bunch of innocent victims, there are a whole bunch of action scenes, there's a murky international corporation, and there's a very satisfying, totally cliche end. And ever since this book first came out, that's exactly what has happened. It has brought me pure joy. So I couldn't help but mention it as my ultimate summer joy book for this little video snippet. If you read it, I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you all.
Hi, this is Pat from Book Chat with Pat. Thank you, Gareth, for inviting me to share a book that has brought me great joy in honor of the lovely Alice of Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, whom we lost last June. Before her death, Alice had proposed the Joy Reading June reading event. Leonard and Hungry Paul is the debut novel of the Irish writer and musician Ronan Hession. and it is a novel that I have read twice in the last year, and it is a novel that brings me great joy. It's the story of two young men in their 30s who have been lifelong friends. They both lead fairly quiet, fairly ordinary lives for the most part. What strikes me, though, about these two characters is their absolute acceptance of themselves. They do not pretend to be anything that they're not. They do not apologize for being good and decent and, above all else, kind human beings in a world that often fails to honor or value those qualities. Some big changes do occur in the lives of both Leonard and Hungry Paul. Leonard finds love. Hungry Paul gets some incredible opportunities that he never could have imagined. But that's not really what this book is about. Rather, to me, it is about regular, decent, kind people who lead ordinary, decent lives, and they make no apology for it. In a world that increasingly bombards us with cruelty and inhumanity, this beautiful book about kindness brought me great joy.
Hello! The lovely Gareth has asked me to talk about a book that brings me joy in sort of celebration of Joy Reading June and in memory of my beautiful friend Alice. And it wasn't actually very difficult for me to pick a book. It's a book that I've read very recently. In fact, I've read the first two in the series. And it's also a book and a series that I think Alice would have adored. And I really wish I could talk to her about it, but obviously I can't, so I'm going to talk to you guys about it. And that book is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman, which sounds like a bizarre book to pick, and it is indeed a bizarre book. It's sort of a cross between like Hunger Games and World of Warcraft. It's about a guy who's sort of thrown into this underworld dungeon. The world collapses and he's in this dungeon, and it's a fight to the death that is televised, basically, with monsters, goblins, rats, cockroaches, all of these kind of awesome creatures. There's like health bars, and you have to get XP, and you like level up skills. But one of the absolute best parts of this book is the animal sidekick, which is a cat. Note the reason that I think Alice would love this. And her name is Princess Donut. I mean, Princess Donut, I think, could be the best character name I've ever come across. But it is just so much fun. It's super sort of sarcastic and funny, and I laughed a lot while I listened to this. I recommend the audiobook. It's so well narrated. And yeah, as I say, I've read the first and the second book in this series. I think there are currently 7 in the series, with an 8th due later this year. So yeah, it's time to jump aboard the Dungeon Crawler Carl train, if you ask my opinion.
Hi guys, so this is Emily from Noble Novels, and this is my book that brings me joy. It's Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. It is such an amazing book that makes me happy every time I read it. It talks of childhood joy, childhood innocence, and the joys of being true to yourself and having fun, of misadventure, of friendship, of found family, and all the things I absolutely love in the world. Anne reminds me of myself when I was younger, the bubbliness, the silliness, the making mistakes, but being honest and true to herself about them. The friendships, the adventures, and one that I absolutely love from my bottom of my heart. I love Anne with every bit of me, and she is a character that I will always enjoy. I look forward to seeing what everyone else loves. Take care, bye bye.
Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. It's Charlotte from Queenie Reads here to recommend a book to promote joyful reading. And the book that I have to recommend for you today is a bit of a different one, not least because it's a book that I actually haven't finished yet. But it is 365 Poems for Life, edited by Ali Asiri. This is, as you can see, a poetry collection with a poem recommendation for every day of the year. And this is the collection that I'm currently making my way through this year. And while, yes, I haven't finished this because it is currently the 22nd of June when I'm filming, I have been thoroughly enjoying the process of sitting down each day and reading one of these poems, because the focus of these poems is that they are uplifting, reflective, and are themselves joyous. Each month has a different theme that Ali Asiri is trying to group the poems together by. So January is for beginnings, February is for love, March is humour and hope, April is nature and meditation, May is gratitude, June is joy, July is escape, August is friends and family, September is inspiration, October is contemplation, November is endings, and December is celebrations. And as you can see, very apropos for the video that I'm filming right now, June is joy. And pretty much every single poem in this collection I have really enjoyed. Most of the time when I have these kind of collected, edited poetry collections, you get some that are real hit and misses. But because each of these are uplifting and positive, it's just been a really lovely way to start the day. And I wanted to read you the poem for the 21st of June, which is Happy the Man by Joyreading. Happy the man, and happy he alone, he who can call today his own. He who secure within can say, tomorrow do thy worst, for I have lived today. Be fair or foul, or rain or shine, the joys I have possessed in spite of fate are mine. Not heaven itself upon the past has power, but what has been, and I have had my hour.
Hi everyone, I'm Jim from Mystery and Mayhem. In celebration of the memory of Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, I wanted to share with you a book that gives me joy. And that would be this book, The Swords of Shahrazad by Robert E. Howard. It's no secret that Robert E. Howard is my favorite writer. I've been a lifelong reader, and this is just a book I ordered when I was just a kid. I got it through mail order, and I'm so happy to have it. And every time I open it up, it just gives me joy, it makes me happy. It's got great artwork throughout by Michael Kaluta, and this features Robert E. Howard's desert adventurer character, Kirby O'Donnell. I just got a lovely cover. It's got beautiful interior artwork, and it's got lovely black and white illustrations throughout. And I'm just happy to have it on my shelf. And I wanted to share that with you today in memory of Alice.
Hi everyone, I was very honoured to be asked to be part of this wonderful tribute to a lovely lady. Alice was someone who I worked closely with when we hosted the Women's World Cup readathon, and I got to know her a little bit, maybe not as well as some of you who of course actually got to meet her in real life, but she really was a wonderful person, and I think this event is a lovely, as I say, a lovely tribute. And of course, if you watch my channel, you know that I would probably likely say a book that brings me joy would be Three Men in a Boat. However, I've decided to change it this year to a book, for this year rather, to a book that brought me joy during the course of this year so far. And that book is Mozart's Starling, here by Leander Lynn Haupt. And it's a wonderful and joyous book on the relationship between humans and animals, in this case, humans and birds, specifically the author and starling she adopted, as well, of course, as Mozart and the starling he adopted as well. She wants to kind of write about this relationship between Mozart and his starling, whilst, of course, mirroring it through the relationship between herself and her wonderful starling. It's a lovely, wonderful read that teaches you a lot about birds, especially starlings, of course, and Mozart. So there we go. That's a book that brings me joy. All the best to you. Thank you.
Alice was such a warm and kind booktuber and person, and her videos always made me smile. The pleasure she found in reading was profound. And one book that always brings me joy is Alan Bennett's novella, The Uncommon Reader, in which Queen Elizabeth finds a deep connection to reading. One day, her little dogs lead her to a mobile library right outside Buckingham Palace, and there she feels duty-bound, as queens do, to check out a book. She starts with Ivy Compton Burnett, and then moves on to authors from Thomas Hardy to Marcel Proust. For her, the books aren't escapism from real life, but instead a vision into the lives of regular people. She also falls in love with talking about books, and she befriends her young staff member Norman, who introduces her to gay fiction and expands her understanding of the world in other ways too. I don't know if Alice read The Uncommon Reader, but I can imagine she might have loved it just as much as I do.
Okay, so that leaves my video, my last video in this cavalcade of booktubers. I really hope that we've given you the impression of how much we miss Alice and how much we appreciated her and we loved her channel, and hopefully that's come across in the video. This was a really nice way, I thought, to gather together and talk about something that she was going to be talking about a lot, and honour Alice's memory and encourage people to check out Alice and the Giant Bookshelf's channel if you haven't already. I'm sure you have. But it's very strange that she's not around and we all miss her. So there we are. My nomination, my book, is Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. So this is the sequel to Kings of the Wild, which I've talked about no end on my channel. I kept talking about Kings of the Wild for a while. I absolutely loved it. I think I actually like this more. This is set a few years later, and that's Rose from the title. But Rose is the character that gets rescued in the first book by her father, and called Golden Gabe, and the band of mercenaries that Gabe belongs to. So that was the kind of the plot, rescue plot, to rescue his daughter in the first book. This is slightly different. It's slightly bigger. There's really interesting characterization in it, and the point of view character is actually Tam here. So Tam starts off the book having this sort of heroic, idealized impression of what the mercenaries are like, and then she joins the mercenaries in the first couple of chapters, and then that idealized view of what they do is kind of taken away very quickly. And they're a really interesting set of characters. You've got Rose, who's in charge of them, but she's got a very complex personality. You've got a Drew in there, Free Cloud, who's got a very close relationship with her, and he's got a fantastic role to play in it. Cura, who's an ink witch, and she has magical tattoos that she fights with. Some of the fighting sequences are so cool. And then you've got Brune, who can literally turn into a bear, and he's a shaman, and they all interact in really interesting ways. There's kind of a found family situation, and there's some really lovely reflective moments in the book. It's quite a deep book for an action-packed adventure action kind of book. There's lots of reflective moments. There's lots of interesting moments between the characters. It's really, really well written, and I thoroughly recommend it. So I think it's a good advert for fantasy novels. So, but I'd say read Kings of the Wild first if you haven't read this, because it sort of sets it up in some ways. But some of it's funny, some of it's just really endearing and heartwarming. It's a really good story, and as I said, it's the pace. It, like, straight off the first two chapters, kind of kicks off at a really fast pace and doesn't really let up. And yeah, it's just so brilliant. Fantastic book, Bloody Rose. So there we are. That was my example of joy reading in June. And this whole video has been for Alice. So check out our channel. Thanks a lot for watching. Check out all the other channels that have been in this video. And thanks for watching. Stay curious, everybody.